Hey guys, my name is Nick and welcome back to the channel, and in this video we continue with our in-depth series, and this time we are focusing on the Forgefiend, now specifically the one from the Thousand Sons Codex, so it can be affected by all the cool powers that the Thousand Sons can offer, and as well as their stratagems. So let's get straight into the video. So let's get straight in with the stats of the Forgefiend then. As with all models that are over 10 wounds, it has a damage profile. So its weapon skill is 4+, strength of 6, toughness of 7, 12 wounds, a leadership of 8 and a save of 3+. Now the damage table has 7 to 12 wounds, it has a move of 8 inches, a ballistic skill of 4+, and 4 attacks. When it's reduced to its second tier, 4 to 6 remaining wounds, has a move of 6, a ballistic skill of 5+, and 3 attacks. And when it's on its last legs, 1 to 3 wounds, has a move of 4 inches, a ballistic skill of 6+, and just 2 attacks. It comes equipped as standard with 2 Hades autocannons and demon jaws. You can upgrade the Hades autocannons with ectoplasma cannons, and you can also replace the demon jaws with an ectoplasma cannon as well. So you can run it with 3 ectoplasma cannons. The ectoplasma cannon then has a range of 24, it's heavy D3, strength 7, AP -3 and a damage of D3. The Hades autocannon has a range of 36 inches, heavy 4, strength 8, AP -1 and a flat 2 damage. And demon jaws are used in melee, strength of user, so strength 6, with an AP of -1 and 2 damage again. So multi-damage weapons, really good for taking out those 2 wounded models. Regarding its abilities, it is demonic, therefore has a 5+ invulnerable save. Infernal regeneration, so at the beginning of your turn it heals 1 wound. And when it's reduced to 0 wounds and it explodes, roll a d6 before removing the model from the battlefield, and any unit within 6 inches suffers d3 mortal wounds if that d6 roll is a 6. Its faction keywords are Chaos, Tzeentch, Heretic Astartes and Thousand Sons, with keywords of Vehicle, Demon, Demon Engine and Forgefiend. So very much aligned to the Helldrake. The Forgefiend has a power level of 9. It fulfills a heavy support detachment slot. For match play, its base points cost is 119 points plus weapons. So a pair of Hades autocannons at 25 points each increases that points cost by 50 points, and the demon jaws are an 8-point option. The total cost therefore of the Forgefiend is 177 points then with the pair of Hades autocannons and demon jaws. However, if you go for the ectoplasma option, if you take just a pair of ectoplasma cannons and the demon jaws, it's 179 points, but if you also replace the demon jaws with an ectoplasma cannon, it comes out at 197 points, so just shy of 200 points. So what are the main disadvantages or the negatives for the Forgefiend? Now for me, probably the biggest negative or the biggest downside to it is the competition within the heavy support slot that this fulfills. One of the biggest comparisons easily able to be made is to the Chaos Predator. That operates at the same power level, and when tooled up either with autocannons and las cannons across the board, comes in at a very similar price. So a fully las cannon Predator, for example, is 190 points. A little bit cheaper if you're taking autocannons instead. So the big question here is whether you should take something like the Forgefiend or something like the Predator. The Predator has a few disadvantages compared to the Forgefiend. It can't regenerate wounds, and it hasn't got an invulnerable save, and it also has 1 less wound. That means that the Forgefiend is a lot more survivable with that invulnerable save, and invulnerable saves can be modified with psychic powers. Both the Forgefiend and Predator both suffer from the fact that they have lots of heavy weapons, and if you move and fire heavy weapons, your ballistic skill is modified. Now the Forgefiend comes with a stock ballistic skill of 4+, so as soon as you try and move this guy, he's going to struggle to hit. And the same goes for the Predator, however that has a stock of 3+ on its ballistic skill. The Forgefiend, however, does have a bit of melee capability, so it's got a weapon skill value and those demonic jaws, which means that it can fulfill a close combat requirement. So realistically, the Forgefiend makes for an excellent static fire base that's pretty resilient. So moving him forward and all the rest of it, probably not his best strength. Keeping him in your back lines, using him to provide cover fire for your other Thousand Sons models while sitting there stationary, maybe on an objective or so, and just keeping things at range. Those Hades autocannons have a range of 36, which isn't to be underestimated. However, if you go with ectoplasma cannons, they only have a range of 24. And for me, that is pretty short range, even though they kick out, you know, in effect, you could go to 3d3 heavy shots and cause 3d3 lots of damage. So pretty good for tough infantry, especially with the AP of -3. That range can be a bit of a downside. So the question comes down to then, if you've made the decision that you're going to go for a Forgefiend, how are you going to equip him? Are you going to go with triple ectoplasma, or are you going to go Hades autocannons and demon jaws? Or are you even going to go 2 ectoplasma and keep the demon jaws? As you've heard, points wise, there's not a huge amount in it. You know, they vary between sort of higher 170s to low 190s, depending which equipment you go with. But for me, I'm fairly set on the Hades autocannon and demon jaws as shown in the pictures that I've got of the version that I've built. The main reason I've gone with that is the ectoplasma cannons with their short range, variable number of shots and variable number of damage means they're quite unreliable. Especially when you combine that with a ballistic skill of only 4+, only half of those random number of shots are even going to hit. I think a lot of the other units within the Thousand Sons army can fulfill probably just as much damage output, but be more mobile and more likely to get damage off, especially with all of the Inferno bolts at -2 anyway on the AP. I don't think plasma is necessarily the right way to go with this model. And the real benefit then comes from the Hades autocannon of strength 8. With so many models these days of at least toughness 4 and less, you are going to be wounding on a 2+ when you do get those shots to hit. This model is going to be pretty terrible at trying to attack flyers, especially when they're -1 to hit, and if you need to move to try and hit or be in range or line of sight of those flyers, you're going to be hitting on 6s, so very limited options there. What you need to consider is the flat 2 damage and that AP of -1. So if you're hitting a squad of Terminator type equivalents that are toughness 4 with a 2+ save and 2 wounds, then you're going to be reducing their save efficiently enough to be able to cause some concerns for your opponent, as every wound that they fail is going to be a model removed. Also bear in mind that this model comes with 2 Hades autocannons, so he's actually kicking out 8 shots, which you can split fire, so you can fire one into one unit and one into another. Although personally, depending on the target, you'd be more likely to combine fire and get all 8 shots into one target. So that covers the stock version of the Forgefiend. How can we make him better though? So as exactly the same with the Helldrake coverage, this is a demon engine of Tzeentch and therefore can be affected by a bunch of stratagems and a bunch of psychic powers to make him a little bit better. The first one of the stratagems I want to talk about is Demon Forge. And again, exactly the same as the Helldrake, this allows you to re-roll hit and wound rolls that this model makes until the end of the phase, affecting Thousand Sons demon vehicles, which this is. With that low ballistic skill and those 8 shots, this certainly has a good chance of really increasing the damage output capability of the Forgefiend. Now, as I mentioned, with heavy weapons and moving, you are at a -1 ballistic skill. However, blasphemous machines for 1 command point will allow you to ignore that penalty, so you can move and still fire at the base ballistic skill of the vehicle. So let's look at the psychic powers that can affect the Forgefiend. Exactly the same again as with the Helldrake, Glamour of Tzeentch is certainly a good one. So if cast, any Thousand Sons unit within 12 inches of the Psyker, 18 inches when buffed because of the Thousand Sons special rule. Until the start of the next psychic phase, anyone who targets your Forgefiend with this spell on it is going to be a -1 to hit. The second psychic ability that is going to affect this guy is Temporal Manipulation, which allows you to regenerate D3 wounds. Now it's already regenerating 1 at the end of its turn, but if it's severely damaged and that ballistic skill is heavily impacted, then you want to try and get the wounds back up so that you can make this guy a bit more effective. Finally, within Discipline of Change is Weaver of Fate, my old favourite. This allows you to increase the invulnerable save by 1 to a maximum of 3. And this unit can be affected by this, so it already has a 5+ invulnerable save. Increasing that to 4 gives it a much better chance to survive on those 50-50 rolls. Moving into the Dark Hereticus discipline then, Prescience is another good target for the Forgefiend. If manifested, a Hereticus Astartes unit, which this guy qualifies for, within 18 inches or 24 when buffed, you can add 1 to all hit rolls for that unit. This is really good considering that his ballistic skill is pretty poor. So, and remember that hit rolls includes melee as well. Also from Dark Hereticus is Diabolic Strength, adding 2 to that model's strength and 1 to its attack characteristics. If your backlines are infiltrated by filthy Imperial scum, then this guy might need to be defending some objectives and so on, and getting him into combat with that added strength, which puts him up to strength 8 with those demon jaws, causing 2 damage and AP -1. With that extra attack, if he's not damaged, he's gone 5 attacks with that weapon skill of 4+. So he's going to be pretty effective at clearing some backlines as well and causing some damage when boosted by Diabolic Strength. Finally, he can be affected by Warp Time. Again, that picks on Heretic Astartes units within 3 inches of the Psyker, 9 inches for Thousand Sons because of their little buff, and that can increase the guy's movement up to 16 inches when he's at full strength. However, as I said, moving this guy is not always the best option. So I think Warp Time on this guy is probably wasted, but you could use it under certain circumstances. Finally, a couple of characters within the Thousand Sons book, such as Magnus, can use Discipline of Tzeentch. There's a couple of powers in this list that can affect your Forgefiend, one of which is Boon of Change, giving you an extra limb or an extra point of strength or an extra point of toughness. That extra limb giving you +1 attack, of course. That can affect friendly Tzeentch demon units, which this guy is. And finally we have Flickering Flames, again affecting Tzeentch demon units. Until the next psychic phase, you can add 1 to any wound rolls made for that unit's shooting weapons. Again, yeah, debatable whether you want to do this, especially as you have to include Magnus or a Demon Prince in order to use the Discipline of Tzeentch powers. However, you can include the Forgefiend in a Demon Tzeentch army because it has all the relevant keywords, specifically Demon, as Chaos is no longer considered the right keyword when combining models across detachments. So if you're really desperate for Boon of Change or Flickering Flames, then consider putting him into a Tzeentch Demon detachment with the relevant Psykers who all have access to that discipline. So there we go then, guys, that covers all the details of the Forgefiend and what can buff it and make him a little bit better. The real question is, should you include him in your army? Now I think the model is very nice, I really enjoyed painting it, but would it appear in a regular 2K Thousand Sons list? And for me, I think the answer is no. For the same or similar amount of points, I'd rather take a second Helldrake. Now Helldrakes for me I think are a valid option in a Thousand Sons army just based on their speed and fear factor. Now if you imagine that speed and fear factor doubled or even potentially tripled, as you can, the new rules allow you to take a maximum of 3 of the same data sheet, I'd be more inclined to take another Helldrake than I would over a Forgefiend. Okay, it doesn't have the same shooting output, but that fear factor and movement and those attacks and everything else, getting in your opponent's face, I think has a lot more benefit than sitting back on an objective with a little sort of shooty platform. If you want a shooty platform, I would probably take a Predator. That's my opinions. I don't know whether you agree with them or disagree with them. That's entirely up to you. But if you have anything to say on the matter, I look forward to reading those in the comments below. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something new. If you did, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I shall catch you guys on the next video.